In this video, I'll be covering 6 basic questions I feel are most useful to answer when creating your own fictional world. And as I do so, I'll be answering these questions myself for a new world I'm creating. Hi everyone, my name is Nate, and you are watching WASD20, a channel about tabletop RPGs and fantasy maps. This video is sponsored by Anvil, the best tool for all you world builders, game masters, and authors for organizing all your world building info. Lore, timelines, maps, NPCs, plot lines, and more, all at your fingertips and easily shared with your players or readers. Keep your eyes peeled for bits and pieces of Anvil's great features throughout this video as I use it for my own world building. And if you like what you see, go check it out for yourself over at worldanvil.com. Several months ago, I did a video that featured some questions to get you started in world building, but looking back on it, I now realize they were really questions that were getting at various approaches to world building. If I was better at clickbait, I would have titled it, "Don't start your world building without answering these questions," and the thumbnail would have had me going, "Oh," or something ridiculous like that. But anyway, I happen to think it's a pretty good video, and I'll put a link to that one right up at the top in case you want to go see it. But in this video, we get practical. If that was session 0, this is session 1. These are your in-world questions that will have you actually creating aspects of your world. I think they're a good starting point, but they're really all optional. For that matter, I'd love to hear what questions you think would be best for someone just starting a new world. So after you hear mine, just leave your own down in the comments. Now, I'm coming from the perspective of an RPG game master who usually doesn't stray too far from some of the fantasy tropes. However, there's certainly much to gain here for any fictional world builder, and most of the questions I provide are pretty genre neutral. The world I will be building today is Izora. I made this map a while back, and I'm pretty happy with it, but I really don't know much about the place. So this seems like a perfect time for me to start fleshing some of it out. The first question, what is the source of magic, and how does magic work? Now, this is already making a pretty big assumption. Is there even magic in your world? Maybe not. But for me, I'm working in the fantasy genre, and I think for that purpose, it's a pretty foundational question in general. Will magic be common and pervasive, or will it be rare or rather hidden? Is magical ability an inherited trait? Is it in the air, pulled from the stars or the stones of the earth? Is it a gift from the gods or other powerful beings? Now, for my world, Izora, I'm creating this world with the hopes of running Dungeons & Dragons games in it. In D&D, magic is very broad because there are several different casting classes that learn and use magic in different ways. So the overarching idea of the weave, this force of the universe that flows all around, is how magic presents itself to beings in the D&D multiverse. Since D&D is my game of choice, I don't want to stray too far from that. I want a broad magic system that will allow warlocks, sorcerers, wizards, etc. to all feel feasible, even though their magic works differently. However, I do like the idea of magic in Izora being more drawn from the earth. So magic might be harder to use at sea, for example, which could be game-breaking, but I'll think about the in-game implications a bit more and adjust if needed. In Izora, there's a fairly common whitish stone called Titan Stone, and somehow magic is in this stone. Like the weave, it's quite common in Izora, and it allows for some pretty cool uses, but nothing game-breaking. Although many have tried to unlock the mystery of how magic inhabits this rock, its secrets are elusive, and stockpiling this stone or attempts to harness its magical energy more directly have only ever failed. So that's a start. Right now I'm just kind of planting this seed for some ideas, but I can already see some pretty cool possibilities here. Question number 2, what is the level of technology? Now, especially if you don't really have magic in your world, this could be an important one. The previous question can often bleed into this one, and perhaps we could more broadly ask, what is fantastical about your world? This could be magic, this could be crazy creatures and monsters, but it could also be technology. And in many worlds, technology and magic work together and are almost indistinguishable from one another. But for tech level, it can often be helpful to have a historical or a fictional reference, a time and a place, because honestly, just a time might not be specific enough, as parts of our world were much more advanced in certain ways than other parts. So what tech level do you want? Will this be Bronze Age Mesopotamia, Ming Dynasty China, or will it be so far in the future that most tech has burned out and only remnants of the old but very advanced tech remain from the progenitors or whatever? If it's sci-fi, will it be Star Wars tech, Star Trek, Firefly, Alien? In my world, I'm going to favor a fairly low tech level. It'll definitely be mostly a medieval Europe feel with occasional exceptions, because sometimes I just can't resist something cool that may not have actually come around until the 18th century, or that still might not exist in our world. But those cases will be rare, and I'll honestly just have to feel them out further as I actually start running games in this world. Question number 3. What is the place of the gods and religion in your world? Will the gods' presence be undeniable? Will they be ever involved, even occasionally walking amongst the people? Or will they be distant, remote, a vague memory that many inhabitants will be inclined to doubt? Answers to these questions could also include your world's creation or creation myths, and here we get to the importance of distinguishing between what is true about your world and what the inhabitants of your world believe. These could be very different things, and that can be fun, as uncovering the truth could actually contribute to a meaningful story in this world. You could even go with a society with no gods or with only one god. In worlds of my own creation, however, I do tend to favor polytheism because conflict between gods and different societies with different patron deities just makes things more interesting to me. So in Azora, I will have a pantheon of gods, and this is a common place to start. But in my world, the presence of gods is very much debated. Many of the most powerful governments even have made worship of gods illegal and consider it dangerous, so a lot of the religious orders have gone underground or fled to different parts of the world. I'll accept most of the gods in the D&D multiverse, but I'd definitely like to have some gods of my own creation. For example, for Azora, I decided to carry over a goddess I created for a different project. Her name is Deltana, and she's associated with the sun. She's a benevolent goddess, and her followers channel her power through song, kind of like bard priests. So go make your own gods. The player's handbook has several pages of D&D world and real world pantheons, and looking through charts like this are a fantastic way to be inspired to create your own gods or pantheons. And for that matter, consider the notion that religion or gods might not be prevalent in your world, but there are still most certainly belief systems. Everyone believes something, and even the way people live implies evidence of a faith in something. Question number 4. What races and sorts of creatures exist in your world? Or for that matter, plant life? As with many aspects of this process, you have the opportunity to get completely fantastical and creative. That's been on my mind a lot lately for races and plants because I've been playing a lot of No Man's Sky, where things are just kind of nuts depending on what planet you're on. So you could go nuts. If you want snake people with pink mohawks or intelligent blobs of goo that communicate through vibrations, go for it. If you're world building for an RPG, I think one of the bigger questions will be, what is the place of the races the game system provides in your world? Feel free to homebrew some of your own, but what about humans, dwarves, elves, tieflings, goblins, etc.? Which of these are common? Which are rare? And what is the place of these races in your world? I think it can be a good exercise in creativity simply to tweak them a little bit. So who says that dwarves mine under mountains? Okay, so in Azora, dwarves are going to mine in the mountains, and I've got this city right here where a lot of that's going to take place. But there's also a culture of hardy desert dwarves who have burrowed under the sand here in Gorsham. And goblins? Well, they actually are much more in tune with nature in Azora. And while they don't take kindly to intruders, they aren't quite as evil. So I'll certainly give more thought to other races as well, but in the interest of not making this a 30-minute video, there are just a couple examples of how I tweak things a little bit from the tropes or established norms. Now you do you. Switch things up even more if that's your thing, or keep things pretty close to what another world has already established. Question number 5. Who is in power? So here we can certainly talk about governments, but also think of factions or even powerful individuals. Some might prefer to start with a form of government, or maybe even a few, depending on the region. I didn't know that there were this many forms of government, but check out this massive list from this book. This is Absolute Tabletop's Be a Better Campaign Master Book 1, Building the World. Tons of wild and crazy forms of government. So the main political entities are a good place to start when talking about power. Think of the largest cities. Do they rule kingdoms, or are they more a collection of city-states? Are there political boundaries? And what level of organization exists in this world? Is there an empire? Or are there provinces? What individuals are in control? And what groups other than governments exert influence in this world? Are there secretive factions that steer world events from the shadows? Are businesses or guilds powerful in your world? Who are the movers and shakers? Who is pulling the strings? Now, Izora. This was a world that was previously ruled by a powerful and somewhat cruel empire of high elves. This is the only way these two continents consisted of one world. They were both under the Azoran elves. The other inhabitants of this land, however, rebelled against the elves some 800 years ago and won. Over time, powerful warlords and noble families formed several independent kingdoms. Rule in each is generally passed down through bloodlines, and they're mostly at peace these days, but some are more oppressive than others. So that's just a small start. I've got a lot more detail I need to fill in there, but I think it's a pretty decent foundation. Question number 6. What threats do the inhabitants of your world face? What are the conflicts? This is an important part of any storytelling that you hope will take place in this world. Stories always involve conflict or threat. But this doesn't need to be a war. Your threat could be a famine, disease, the mysterious disappearance of a noble, or strange sandstorms that are impeding travel and therefore trade. Or it could be along the more traditional lines. Tension is on the rise between two kingdoms and war seems imminent. Orcs are raiding in the south. A dragon has been spotted and is devouring livestock. I also think it's wise to have several different conflicts brewing. It's realistic and it helps your world feel more alive. Also, if you're running an RPG in this world, it will give your players some options of what threats they'd like to investigate or explore further. Some of these conflicts can be obvious, in-your-face conflicts. I think of Wildmount. A war is beginning. Matt Mercer is not hiding this. But other threats can start small and mysterious and turn huge and clearly world-threatening later on. I think it's kind of a good idea to mix them. You can even think of stages of conflict as you slowly start to link local threats to larger ones. In Izora, I'm going to say that the various kingdoms are mostly at peace at this time. However, there is a secretive sect of Izoran elves that are bent on retaking their place of power in this world. They operate in the shadows, but they have agents planted in nearly every court in Izora. Another threat I'll create for Izora is the persecution of religious orders I mentioned earlier. We'll say that the Queen of Sumis is leading the charge on this, and it does create a lot of tension with neighbors as many religious refugees are flooding other cities. Let's throw in a smaller, more localized threat too here. I'd like to have a simple fish problem in this lake, which I didn't label, but I think we'll call it Lake Morai. Hundreds of dead fish are being found washed up on the beaches every morning, or found floating dead on the surface of the lake. It could be a simple case of some nasty kind of pollution, or it could be something more serious. The tip of the iceberg on a larger threat, or even linked to one of the larger threats that I just mentioned. So right there, I just created 3 threats. I think that's enough of a start for now, and I can flesh them out more and make some connections and kind of solve some of the mysteries myself later. So here's what I've got on World Anvil so far, and I'm pretty happy with this. I finished this map months ago, and it's good to finally know more about this place. I've got a lot of work to do, and I'm excited to do it. You can see here that I've got the main page for Izora, and most of what I've done has been placing tags on the map for different ideas, and I can keep some of my notes private, and I've also been creating articles and linking them to the map tags and linking between articles. There's a ton of other features on World Anvil, but this is just a little taste of some basic things you can do. But how about you? Do the questions I asked help you flesh out your world? Are there important questions you think I missed? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I'd like to take a moment to thank my patrons here before signing off. These amazing people support WASD20 on a monthly basis, and I'm incredibly grateful. If you like my videos and you want to join with these great people in helping make all of this possible, and you get some pretty cool rewards like access to weekly live map drawing streams with me, please head on over to patreon.com/WASD20 and check it all out. Thanks again to World Anvil for sponsoring this one, and thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. I hope you and yours are staying safe and sane in these interesting times, and everybody take care. You'll see me again very soon.